20 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, I walked into the bridal suite and found my fiancé's female best friend wearing my wedding dress. Not a similar dress, my dress. It was the ivory silk gown with the clean square neckline and long train that I had loved 6 months ago. The exact dress Ethan had eventually convinced me not to wear. It's beautiful, Claire, but it's a little severe, almost corporate, like you're walking into a board meeting instead of a wedding. Standing in the doorway of the Napa Valley estate, watching Savannah Blake twirl slowly in front of the mirror in that very dress, I finally understood. Ethan hadn't thought the gown was wrong. He had just liked it better on her. Savannah's blonde hair was pinned into a loose twist, almost identical to the style from my first bridal trial. My future mother-in-law, Diane, stood near the window with her phone raised, snapping pictures. And Ethan, fully dressed in his tuxedo, leaned against the dresser as if this were the most normal pre-wedding activity in the world. Savannah saw me first. Her smile vanished for half a second. Then, she instantly deployed the soft, apologetic victim face I had seen 100 times whenever she crossed a line and wanted Ethan to defend her. "Claire, please don't be mad," she said quickly, looking down at the silk skirt. "Diane told me it was still upstairs. I just wanted to see what it felt like. I'll take it off." I didn't answer her. I looked at Ethan. Tell her to take it off. The room went dead still. Ethan frowned. Not at Savannah. At me. "Are we really doing this right now?" he sighed. "Doing what?" "Making a scene over a dress." For a second, I honestly thought I had heard him wrong. "It is my wedding dress." Diane lowered her phone, rolling her eyes. "Honey, the dress you're wearing downstairs is your wedding dress. You changed your mind about this one, remember? Savannah is only trying it on for 5 minutes." "I changed my mind about wearing it," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "I didn't donate it to the wedding party." Savannah's eyes filled with tears on command. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I knew this was stupid. I shouldn't have asked." She reached behind her back for the zipper. She pulled it down so agonizingly slow that she might as well have counted down to what happened next. Ethan crossed the room and caught her wrist. "Don't." Then he turned to me, his jaw tight. "Claire, she has been my best friend since high school. You know she didn't grow up with a normal family. She was just saying she's probably never going to have a big wedding, and Mom thought it would be fun for her to see what a real gown felt like. Why do you treat every woman like she's a threat?" There it was. The exact same argument I'd swallowed for 5 years. But this wasn't a 2 a.m. phone call. This wasn't a charity dinner. There were 160 guests downstairs. My father had flown in from Boston. Ethan's elite investors and tech reporters were sitting in the courtyard. And 20 minutes before saying, "I do," he was demanding that I share my wedding dress with his ex-girlfriend. "Take it off," I repeated, my voice dropping a terrifying octave. Ethan's face hardened. "Do you want to ruin the entire day over this?" I almost laughed. "I'm ruining it." Before I could speak, the heavy wooden door swung open. The wedding photographer, Luis, walked in. He stopped dead in his tracks when he saw 2 women in bridal gowns. His eyes darted from Savannah to me. Did I miss an outfit change?" "Just a few fun shots, Luis," Ethan said smoothly. Savannah's never going to have a wedding like this. You don't know that, Savannah murmured, giving him a wounded smile. You know what I mean. Ethan wrapped a protective arm around her shoulders. Luis looked at me, silently asking for permission. I did not nod. But Ethan didn't wait for my permission. He led Savannah toward the balcony doors. I watched, completely paralyzed, as Savannah casually picked up my white rose bridal bouquet from the table. Luis nervously raised his camera. Click. Savannah leaned against Ethan's shoulder. Click. Ethan whispered something in her ear, making her laugh. Diane clasped her hands together. Look at you two, she gushed. You've always looked so good together. If things had been different. She stopped, remembering I was standing 6 feet away. But she didn't need to finish the sentence. If things had been different, if Claire hadn't appeared. I was already reaching for my phone to leave when Luis, desperately trying to lighten the suffocating tension, joked, Do you want one with the rings? Like a fake ceremony shot? I stopped breathing. Oh no. Savannah laughed a little too quickly. That's too much. It's just one picture, Ethan smiled. He walked over to the vanity table. Sitting right beside my perfume was a dark blue velvet box. Ethan, I warned. He ignored me, his hand hovering over the box. Put the box down. He looked back at me, annoyed. Claire, don't start. That is my grandmother's ring. The room went tomb silent. Everyone knew the story of that emerald-cut diamond. My grandmother had worn it for 47 years. Before she died, she had pressed it into my hand and said, Wear it to remember who you are. Ethan had literally held me the night she passed. He knew exactly what that ring meant. He opened the velvet box anyway. Ethan, seriously, we don't need to, Savannah said, though she didn't step away. 5 seconds, Ethan said dismissively. Claire isn't going to lose her mind over 5 seconds. He picked up the diamond. I felt my blood turn to ice. Don't. He didn't listen. He took Savannah's left hand and slid my dead grandmother's ring onto her finger. It was slightly too big for her. She held her hand up, laughing nervously, and Ethan reached out, gently steadying the diamond with his thumb so it would catch the light. Luis's camera clicked out of pure reflex, one clean mechanical sound. Click. And just like that, something inside my chest went completely, permanently silent. All the furious arguments I had rehearsed in my head evaporated. I wasn't jealous anymore. I wasn't humiliated. I wasn't even angry. I was done. Take it off, I said. It wasn't a request. Ethan glared at me. We're finished in a second, Claire. Now. My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Savannah instantly pulled the ring off and practically dropped it back into the velvet box. Ethan stared at me with open, aggressive irritation. You are really going to sulk 20 minutes before our wedding over a photograph? I walked slowly across the room, picked up the velvet box, and snapped it shut. There isn't going to be a wedding. For 2 full seconds, nobody in the bridal suite moved. Then, Ethan let out a short, condescending laugh. He thought I was bluffing. You're serious? he scoffed. You're canceling our wedding over a dress and a photograph? No, I said, my voice dead and steady. I'm canceling it over the fact that you just spent 10 minutes proving that whenever my boundaries and Savannah's feelings collide, you will humiliate me before you disappoint her. Savannah stepped forward, eyes wide with fake remorse. Claire, please don't do this because of me. I'm not doing it because of you. I cut her off without looking at her. If Ethan didn't allow it, you couldn't wear my dress, you couldn't hold my bouquet, and you definitely couldn't put your hands on my grandmother's ring. Ethan's jaw clenched. What exactly do you want from me, Claire? Do you want me to scream at her? Throw her out? Is that what makes you feel secure enough to marry me? I don't want anything from you anymore. I calmly set my bouquet down on the vanity. Then, with steady hands, I unpinned my veil and dropped it onto the floor. That was when I saw the first genuine flicker of panic flash across Ethan's face. It lasted maybe 2 seconds before his arrogant pride rushed in to cover it. There are 160 people downstairs, he warned, his voice dropping into a harsh whisper. Board members, high-profile clients, business press. If you walk out now, you are humiliating yourself. You think that's what I'm worried about? Of course you are. You spent 8 months planning this day. Don't pretend you can just walk away from me because you're having an emotional tantrum. He stepped closer, reaching for my arm. Wash your face. Take 10 minutes to breathe. Then come downstairs. We are getting married. I pulled my phone out of my clutch. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Who are you calling? Mark. That stopped him cold. Mark Harrison was a senior partner at Northbridge Growth, the venture firm leading Coal Dynamics' upcoming $6.5 million bridge funding round. Ethan knew Mark well enough to know that a call to him on a Saturday afternoon meant war. Why the hell are you calling Mark on our wedding day? Ethan demanded, his voice cracking. I ignored him. Mark picked up on the second ring. Claire, aren't you supposed to be walking down the aisle in 15 minutes? Mark, I need Monday's $6.5 million bridge funding frozen immediately, pending an emergency governance review. Mark's professional tone sharpened instantly. On what basis? Undisclosed related party transactions I can personally document, I said evenly. Vehicle leases, luxury apartment expenses, consulting payouts, and a potential lender disclosure violation. There was a heavy beat of silence on the other end of the line. Send me the paper trail, Mark replied, his voice completely devoid of personal warmth. I'll pull outside legal and the credit committee together right now. Nothing funds until we clear this. Thank you, Mark. I ended the call. The silence in the bridal suite was absolute. Savannah looked terrified. Diane had her hand pressed against her throat. Ethan let out a forced, bitter chuckle. Wow. That was convincing, Claire. Really. I almost admire the theater. I dropped my phone back into my bag. You think Mark is playing along? I think you worked at Northbridge years ago and you know how to make a dramatic phone call, he snapped, his face turning red. You don't have the authority to freeze a multi-million-dollar institutional bridge round just because you're having a fight with your fiancé. I didn't freeze it, Ethan. I reported a massive governance breach. Northbridge froze it. I picked up my coat from the sofa. Claire! Ethan shouted, stepping in front of the door. If you walk out that door right now, do not expect me to come begging tomorrow. I looked at the man I had spent 5 years building an empire with. Don't worry, Ethan, I said softly. Tomorrow, the person begging won't be me. I shoved past him. I didn't sneak out through a back exit. I didn't change into street clothes first. I walked down the grand mahogany staircase in my full bridal gown. In the courtyard, the string quartet was playing softly. White roses lined the stone aisle. The 160 guests were already taking their seats under the golden Napa sunlight. Our wedding planner, Melissa, caught sight of me coming down alone and went pale. Claire, the ceremony isn't for another 10... Cancel it. She stared at me in horror. What? I stepped into the courtyard and raised my voice so every single person in attendance could hear. Ladies and gentlemen, there will be no wedding today. The bar and dinner are fully paid for, so please enjoy yourselves. I apologize that you all traveled here for nothing. The courtyard instantly erupted into shocked gasps and frantic whispers. Phones were raised to record before people remembered they were at a high society event. Ethan came sprinting down the stairs behind me, his bow tie loose. Savannah trailed behind him, still sporting the bridal updo. Claire, stop! Ethan hissed, catching my arm. Then he noticed 3 guests filming and dropped his hand. Can we please not do this in front of the entire tech industry? We are way past that. Diane rushed down behind him, her face twisted in rage. Claire, at least wait until the investors leave before having your breakdown. Do you have any idea what this scandal could do to Ethan's company? I turned slowly to face my almost mother-in-law. Oh, so now you're worried about the company? Her mouth snapped shut. I didn't say another word. I walked straight out to the parking lot, kicked off my bridal heels, and slipped into a pair of driving flats. I got into my car and sat in the quiet for 2 minutes, waiting for my adrenaline to level out. My phone buzzed. Mark Harrison. Formal notice issued to Coal Dynamics Board, outside counsel, and their primary lending bank. Funding is officially on hold. 30 seconds later, another message flashed on the screen. Olivia Reyes, CFO, Coal Dynamics. Claire, emergency board meeting called for 7 p.m. tonight. Are you seriously not at your wedding? I typed back a 4-word reply. Wedding canceled. See you at 7. I found out later that Ethan made one final, fatal mistake after I walked out of the vineyard. He didn't shut down the reception. Desperate to save face in front of his investors and the tech press, he claimed I was just overwhelmed and needed a moment to cool off. He kept the band playing. He kept the champagne flowing. And Savannah stayed right by his side. One guest posted a 20-second video that immediately went viral in every Silicon Valley group chat. In it, Savannah raised a glass of champagne toward Ethan, smiling warmly. Well, at least you still have me. People laughed awkwardly. Ethan managed a tight smile. 3 minutes later, his phone rang. It was Olivia, his CFO. The $6.5 million bridge funding was frozen. The bank was reviewing their $3 million revolving credit line, and without it, Monday's payroll was effectively dead. By 7 p.m., I was sitting in Northbridge Growth's glass-walled conference room in downtown San Francisco. I had changed into the cream-tailored suit I had originally packed for my post-wedding brunch. Mark sat beside me. Olivia and 5 other directors appeared on the massive, wall-sized video screen. Ethan was the last to log in. He was still wearing his tuxedo shirt, unbuttoned at the collar. His hair was a mess. He looked frantic. Then he saw me sitting next to Mark, and he froze. "Why the hell is Claire there?" he demanded. Martin Lowe, the board chairman, cleared his throat. "Claire is here because she sourced this investment, and she flagged the transactions that triggered today's crisis. Northbridge manages the position, but Bennett Capital is the principal capital partner." Ethan blinked, completely lost. Bennett Capital? What does that have to do with Claire? The room went dead silent. "Bennett Capital," I said, my voice cutting through the speaker like a blade, "was founded by my father." Ethan's face completely drained of blood. "Your father is Jonathan Bennett?" Jonathan Bennett wasn't on magazine covers, but in institutional private equity, he was a god. Ethan had literally quoted my father's research in his pitch decks. He had once told me he would kill for a meeting with Bennett Capital. He just never bothered to ask enough questions about my life to realize Claire Morgan was a Bennett. "You never told me," Ethan whispered, staring at the screen in horror. "I told you I worked in growth equity," I replied coldly. "You assumed I was a low-level consultant. You never asked what I actually did, Ethan, because you didn't think my work could possibly be as important as yours." Martin cut in, all business. "We are not here to discuss personal relationships. Claire, please present the governance concern." I opened the thick folder in front of me. 3 months ago, I flagged several expenses that didn't match Coal Dynamics' operating profile. Management dismissed them as East Coast branding. Today, I have the receipts. I slid a summary sheet to Mark, who shared it on the screen for the board. A long-term lease on a Porsche Cayenne, a luxury apartment in the Marina District, and monthly retainers to an entity called Blake Creative LLC. Total identified exposure, $427,000. Ethan went perfectly rigid. Olivia leaned closer to her camera, her face pale. "Blake Creative? Ethan, you told me that was a boutique PR agency." "It is," I said. "The sole registered member of the LLC is Savannah Blake." A collective gasp seemed to suck all the air out of the virtual room. Ethan slammed his hand onto his desk. "This is what this is about? You got jealous over a wedding dress, so you hacked into my company's ledgers to destroy me?" "I reviewed portfolio expenses because it is my job," I fired back, not breaking eye contact. "I asked you about them months ago, and you told me not to turn everything into an audit." "They were legitimate consulting fees. Savannah did work for the company." "Then a forensic audit will easily find the deliverables," Mark said calmly. Ethan panicked. "You are using a private fight to destroy a company with 127 employees, Claire." "No," I said, my voice echoing off the glass walls. "I am trying to protect 127 employees by stopping $6.5 million from entering a company before we know if its CEO committed wire fraud and lied to his board." "I wouldn't steal from my own company." "Then you have nothing to worry about." He flinched. It was the exact phrase he had weaponized against me for years. If Savannah is just a friend, what are you worried about? For once, the logic was pointing a loaded gun right back at him. The board unanimously voted to authorize an immediate third-party forensic audit. Ethan loudly objected. He lost the vote, 6-1. When the meeting adjourned at 9:42 p.m., I walked out of the building and checked my phone. I had 36 unread messages from Ethan. The first 10 were pure rage. You had no right. You humiliated me. The middle 10 were bargaining. Call me. We can fix the wedding later. Don't mix business into this. The last message, sent just 2 minutes ago, was pure desperation. Please, Claire, just answer. At 10:15 a.m. on Sunday, outside counsel's forensic team walked into Coal Dynamics and issued a sweeping document hold. Monday's payroll only cleared because Olivia, acting with ruthless efficiency, froze all discretionary spending and negotiated a temporary standstill with the bank. 48 hours later, the preliminary audit findings dropped. They were significantly worse than I had expected. The Porsche Cayenne was exclusively driven by Savannah. The luxury marina apartment lease was in her name. Blake Creative had supposedly been hired for executive image consulting and strategic brand positioning. But the forensic reviewers found absolutely zero meaningful work product behind the $427,000 in invoices. Worse, Ethan had recently signed a formal representation to the company's bank, stating that no material, undisclosed related party arrangements existed. The funding hold hadn't created a crisis. It had simply exposed a fraud. That afternoon, the board voted 6-1 to officially suspend Ethan as CEO, stripping his operating authority. Olivia Reyes was named interim CEO. 10 minutes later, my phone started ringing. Ethan called 23 times in a row. I ignored every single one. The 24th call came from an unknown number. I answered, assuming it was outside counsel. Claire, don't hang up. Ethan's voice was ragged. Where are you calling from? It doesn't matter. You blocked me. I muted you, Ethan. There is a difference. Please, I just need you to understand, he begged. Which part? I asked coldly. The wedding dress? My dead grandmother's ring? Or the $427,000? Silence. Then he said, The money is not what you think. Savannah was in a really bad place last year. She was going to lose her apartment. She had massive debt. She couldn't keep a normal job because of her anxiety. I helped her with company money, but I was going to replace it. With what? The upcoming bridge financing? He didn't answer. Ethan, the company is not your personal emergency fund. I know that. Do you? You lied to your board and your lenders to play savior to your ex-girlfriend. I wasn't lying. I signed a bank certification, Claire. That paperwork is just boilerplate. I closed my eyes. There it was again. Rules were just annoying details until they threatened him. Boundaries were technicalities, unless they were his. He started talking faster, desperation leaking into his voice. Claire, we have been together for 5 years. 5 years. Are you really going to watch me lose everything over one mistake? You're not losing me because Savannah wore a dress for 10 minutes, I said flatly. You're losing me because for years, you treated every boundary I had like a minor inconvenience. You treated my career like a cute hobby. You assumed I would stay no matter how small you made my life. Saturday was simply the first day I stopped helping you explain away your disrespect. I love you. The words hurt significantly less than I expected them to. Maybe you do, but you love being forgiven more. He breathed heavily into the phone. Can you restore the bridge financing? Just temporarily. People are going to lose their jobs. I almost laughed. He had finally said, "I love you," and his literal next sentence was begging for money. Not while the audit is open, Ethan. Olivia is working on a contingency plan. Nobody wants the company to fail. Then help me. I am helping the company. Those are no longer the same thing. I hung up. 3 days later, Savannah came to see me. She waited in the North Bridge growth lobby for 2 hours before I finally allowed security to send her upstairs. When she walked into my office, she looked absolutely nothing like the arrogant woman who had twirled in my bridal gown. No perfect waves, no dramatic makeup. She clutched her handbag with both hands like a shield. "I know you hate me," she began, her voice trembling. "I don't have enough free time to hate you, Savannah." Her mouth tightened. I didn't know the money came from the company. Ethan told me they were legitimate consulting fees. I slid the preliminary audit summary across my glass desk. Blake Creative is your LLC. Cole Dynamics paid it every month. What consulting did you do for $100,000? She looked down at the floor. He promised he'd take care of me. That was when I finally understood their toxic ecosystem. Savannah had made Ethan her permanent safety net years before I met him, and Ethan was addicted to being needed. What they called loyalty was just mutual exploitation. "If I return the car and move out of the apartment, will you stop the audit?" she pleaded. "No, but if you didn't falsify the invoices yourself, I suggest you cooperate with counsel. Hand over your messages and emails." "He'll hate me. He told me we were family." "I'm sure he'll understand," I said dryly. Her eyes flashed with sudden, defensive anger. "Do you want to know what he told me the night before the wedding?" I didn't answer. "He said you'd be upset about the dress, but you'd get over it," she spat out. "He said, Claire likes being reasonable. She won't throw away 5 years over something stupid." That landed. That actually hurt. 5 years of my loyalty had simply become a guarantee that I would tolerate one more insult. Savannah turned toward the door, pausing with her hand on the glass handle. "For what it's worth, Claire, I never actually wanted to marry him." I looked at her. "Then why wear the dress?" For once, she answered without crying. "I wanted to know if he'd let me." A week later, Ethan showed up at my apartment building. The doorman called my intercom at 8:17 p.m. and asked if I wanted security to physically remove him from the lobby. I looked around at the half-packed cardboard boxes littering my living room. Wedding gifts were being returned to senders unopened. My lawyers had already drafted a comprehensive agreement to legally sever the apartment lease, the furniture, the wedding deposits, and our personal property. "Send him up," I said. When the elevator doors opened, Ethan looked like a ghost. The governance review had inevitably leaked to the business press. 2 major customers had delayed their contracts, and the board was now openly debating whether he should ever be allowed to return as CEO. He stepped inside and stared at the cardboard boxes. "You're moving?" "Yes." He swallowed hard. Savannah gave outside counsel everything. even our private text messages. She was legally required to. She told them the wedding dress was a test, Ethan said, his voice completely hollow. She wanted to see if I would pick her over you. And you did. He looked down at the hardwood floor. I know. It was the very first time in 5 years he had ever admitted fault, without immediately attaching a defense to it. Claire, I was wrong, he whispered. I really believed you would never leave me. I know that too. He rubbed his hands together anxiously. When the company finally took off, people waited for me to speak. Tech reporters wanted my opinion. Employees treated every random idea I had like it was genius. Somewhere in there, I started thinking consequences were just for other people, including you. If he had said that a year earlier, I might have cried in his arms. Now, I felt absolutely nothing. I know the wedding is gone, he continued, looking up at me. But the bridge financing... There it was. You came here for the financing, I stated. I came here for us, he countered defensively. I'm just saying the company doesn't have to die because I screwed up. It isn't dying, Ethan. Olivia has aggressively cut spending. Northbridge is working with the bank to restructure the debt. The board is actively discussing replacement capital without you. That is currently the entire point. He looked at me, desperate. If I formally resign, would Bennett Capital restore the full bridge round? That decision belongs to the investment and credit committees, not me, and no one is going to make it until the forensic audit is finished. I walked over to the dining table and picked up a thick legal folder. What I can decide is this, I said, sliding the folder toward him. Because the ceremony never happened, and our marriage license was never signed, there was no legal marriage to dissolve. But there was still a shared financial life to aggressively unwind. The agreement covered everything. It also stated, explicitly, that my grandmother's ring legally belonged to me. Ethan flipped to the first page and stopped. No couples counseling? No trial separation, just nothing? You made the final decision right there at the wedding? I didn't choose Savannah, Ethan. You're right, he snapped bitterly. You chose yourself. I chose a world where everyone else didn't have to endlessly bend around you, I fired back. If I had a boundary, I was insecure. If an employee disagreed, they lacked vision. If a board director asked a question, they didn't understand founders. But if Savannah needed $400,000, the rules magically became flexible. I pushed a silver pen across the table. I don't want to live in your world anymore. He signed the papers. As he walked toward the door, he stopped, patting his pockets. The ring isn't here. My chest tightened. What do you mean? After you walked out, Melissa packed up the bridal suite in a rush. I thought you took it with you. I'll find it. You'd better, I said coldly. Then he left. 2 weeks after the wedding that never happened, the board held its final governance meeting. By then, the forensic audit had confirmed enough to make the outcome brutal and inevitable. Ethan had approved undisclosed related party transactions. He had allowed company funds to cover Savannah's housing and vehicle. He had signed off on fake consulting invoices with no evidence of real work. And he had given false representations to the lender during a period when Coal Dynamics was dangerously tight on cash. The amounts weren't large enough to bankrupt the company by themselves, but they were large enough to destroy something far more valuable: trust. The board voted to remove Ethan permanently as chief executive. His operating authority was terminated immediately. A massive portion of his unvested founder equity was repurchased by the company under penalty clauses. Coal Dynamics formally reserved the right to sue him for repayment of the improper expenses. Ethan kept some shares, but he completely lost control of his empire. Bennett Capital didn't simply restore the $6.5 million bridge round. That would have taught everyone the wrong lesson. Instead, we offered a smaller, staged, $4 million rescue facility with ruthless conditions attached. Olivia had to remain CEO. The company had to appoint 2 independent directors to the board. Related party transaction policies were completely rewritten. Any spending over specific thresholds required dual approval, and the board received weekly cash flow reports. The directors accepted. So did the bank. Monday payroll went out on time. No one cheered. And that was exactly what I liked about it. 127 employees kept their jobs. Engineers who had absolutely nothing to do with my failed wedding didn't have to pay the price for Ethan's ego. The company had a chance to survive without pretending its founder was a god. A Silicon Valley gossip site later ran a clickbait headline calling me the jilted heiress who froze her fiancé's startup funding. I closed the page after reading the first paragraph. The headline was better than the truth, because the truth was a lot less dramatic. I had not destroyed Ethan's career with a single vengeful phone call. I had simply stopped protecting it from scrutiny. After the final board meeting adjourned, Olivia caught up with me by the elevators. "How did you decide that fast at the wedding?" she asked. "I didn't," I said. "The phone call happened in 20 minutes. The decision was built out of 100 smaller things I kept explaining away. The dress was just the last one." Olivia nodded slowly. "Makes sense." That was the profound difference between being heard and being managed. Olivia did not need me to exhaustingly prove why something mattered before she accepted that it did. A month after the canceled wedding, my grandmother's ring finally came back to me. Melissa, our wedding planner, had packed the bridal suite in a blind rush. The blue velvet box had accidentally been shoved into the inner pocket of Ethan's tuxedo garment bag. His attorney found it while cataloging property for our separation agreement. I took the box into my office and locked the door. The emerald-cut diamond caught the afternoon light exactly the way it always had. For years, I had imagined Ethan sliding it onto my finger, under an arch of white roses. Losing that specific future should have felt like losing a limb. Instead, I heard my grandmother's voice. "Wear it to remember who you are." I took it to the small jeweler she had used for decades. He smiled when he saw it. "Do you want the band resized?" "No," I said. "Reset." 6 weeks later, I fastened a thin platinum chain around my neck and watched my grandmother's diamond settle just below my collarbone. It no longer looked like a promise that had failed. It looked like mine. Around the same time, I formally accepted my father's invitation to join Bennett Capital's investment committee. For years, I thought independence meant keeping distance from my family's wealth. I finally understood that true independence was being able to use what I had without letting it define my worth. After my first late-night committee meeting, Dad handed me a coffee in the break room. "I thought you were going to say I told you so about Ethan," I said. "Would it help?" "No." Then why would I? He took a sip of his coffee. Although next time, I would prefer you choose someone who actually lets you finish a sentence when you talk about your work. I laughed. There is no next time on the calendar. Even better. 6 months later, I ran into Ethan at a technology summit in San Jose. Coal dynamics had stabilized under Olivia. The cash burn was lower, and the company had gained something far more useful than media hype: discipline. Ethan was crossing the conference hall when he saw me. His badge listed him as a product advisor for a mid-sized software company. He didn't look ruined or broken. He just looked ordinary. His eyes dropped to the diamond pendant at my neck. You found the ring. Your lawyer did. He nodded. I'm glad. He hesitated, looking at the floor. I'm sorry, Claire. I didn't ask which part he was apologizing for, and I didn't tell him it was okay. Some apologies can be sincere without becoming erasers. I'm consulting now, he offered quietly. First time in years I'm not the person in charge. It's humbling. Apparently, when people disagree with me, it doesn't always mean they lack vision. That lesson arrived late. Very. He glanced away. Savannah moved to Los Angeles. We don't talk. I already knew she had returned the Porsche, left the luxury apartment, and repaid a fraction of the consulting money in a legal settlement. But I didn't care. I did not need her life to get worse for mine to get better. Ethan looked back at me, his eyes shining with regret. I thought you needed me, Claire, because you stayed through everything. I didn't understand that staying was a choice. For one fleeting second, I saw the talented, exhausted man I had loved underneath all the arrogance that came later. I had not been wrong to believe in him then. I had simply stayed way too long after he stopped deserving that belief. Take care of yourself, Ethan. He swallowed hard. You too, Claire. I walked away. I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. A year after my canceled wedding, Bennett Capital closed a massive investment in a medical technology startup. It was the first major deal with my name at the absolute top of the memo as lead investor. There were no tech reporters, no string quartets, no champagne towers, just a Boston conference room, 2 exhausted founders, 4 lawyers, and cold coffee. I had never felt more certain I was exactly where I was supposed to be. After the final signatures, one of the female founders noticed my necklace. That's beautiful, she said. Was it a wedding ring? I looked down at my grandmother's diamond. Almost. What's the story? For a moment, I saw the vineyard again. Savannah in my dress. Ethan holding the ring. The white roses. The phone call everyone later treated as a ruthless act of revenge. But it wasn't revenge. It was supposed to be my wedding ring, I told her, touching the pendant. But I realized I like it better this way. Because now it doesn't remind me of who I almost married. It reminds me of who I am. People still asked whether canceling a wedding over a dress was too extreme. My answer never changed. I did not end a 5-year relationship because another woman wore a gown. The gown simply showed me how many times I had quietly stepped aside until Ethan believed stepping aside was my permanent job. I did not ruin his company because he embarrassed me. I stopped sending money into a business because its CEO treated trust like an unlimited bank account. On my wedding day, Ethan thought that when I walked out of that vineyard, I was throwing away everything I had spent 5 years building. He was dead wrong. I lost a ceremony. I lost a man I once thought I would grow old with. But I got back my career, my boundaries, my grandmother's ring, and the version of myself I had slowly edited down just to make room for his ego. If there was one person who rescued me from the wrong life that day, it wasn't my billionaire father. It wasn't my firm. It wasn't another man waiting at the end of the story. It was me.